afternoon, good morning, good evening, fellow Ambazonians, and welcome. Can you hear me?
Sure, I do. Hope others are hearing you as well.
Okay, thank you very much. Country people them from Ambaland. One thank Oman for this effort, Rodomekam, for joining this very important fireside story today. My own name na Manuel J. Taylor. I be member for Team Ambazonia Act. Our humble host for this very important day today, now no one else but my own brother, Comrade Lambert Mbong. So Comrade Lambert, I beg take floor, welcome others and then introduce our honorable speakers and where they go to answer most of our questions then today. Thank you. More welcome, Comrade Lambert.
Welcome, Comrade Lambert.
Thank you very much. Good morning. I don't know where it's morning now in the world, but good afternoon for those in Europe. Good afternoon to those in the United States, and good evening those joining us from Ambaland. Welcome to this Fireside Chat, and it's a great privilege. Thank you very much, Dr. Taylor, for the introduction. I don't think I'm a very humble man like yourself. It's great to have people like you around who giving up their lives, giving up everything in order to ensure that the struggle continues and we're able to get to the finish line. It's a privilege. We are gathered here again. I think it's been a while since ACT had something like this, and we are glad to be here. We are going to have a word of prayer because it's a fireside chat. I'm going to explain a few things about the fireside. Let's have a word of prayer, and then we'll have the anthem. As I think Comrade Cheps will play the anthem, and those who can sing along will do that. And after that, I'll give a brief introduction of what we are going to be having this afternoon, this evening. Again, welcome to everybody. I invite people to share the link, invite friends. I almost said invite foes too, but I don't think we have any foes. But invite people to come in because it's an informative session, educational session. It's more to make sure that we can gather ourselves and share what we know in order to build a good fortress. I would like to invite Mabia. Mabia, can you lead us in a word of prayer, please?
Let's bow down and pray and thank the Almighty for this day. Father God, we are here because you made it possible for us to be here in the name that keeps it for Ambazonians and for the I'm sorry, I think my microphone went off at one point. Lord, guide us through this deliberation, this fireside talk, and let it be successful. And we pray that others should be able to join us as we ride on. And Lord, we will continuously ask you, and we hope, and surely that we'll get to the ultimate end, which is the independence of Southern Cameroon, Ambazonia. Guide us through, Lord. In Jesus' name we ask, amen.
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 Thank you very much, Antibia. Thank you for lifting us up and inviting God to be in our midst. He has always promised that where 2 or 3 are gathered, he's present. So we are sure that he's present with us. He's present with us in the midst of the sufferings. He's present with us in the midst of these terrifying times, but also present that he's given us this opportunity. And we thank you for lifting us up, for the souls that have gone ahead and for everybody. Comrade Chaps, can you give us the anthem, please?
As the sun has set.
Legends to heroes.
Like the stars above, the Most High God being the Ashman of this nation, Ambazonia, land of freedom, you shall live in plenty in our new, and your children shall be like the stars above, the Most High God being the Ashman of this nation.
Thank you very much. Truly, the Most High God shall be the watchman. He continues to watch over us. If not of him, everything would have crumbled given the events of the recent past. Again, welcome to everybody. Welcome to this fireside, and I'm glad Team Ambazonia, the Ambazonia Coalition Team Act, put this together and titled it a Fireside Chat. Fireside. So what are we doing here this afternoon? At the end of it, you should be able to ask yourself a number of questions, because that is all this is supposed to be. Share information, educate, and update ourselves. So what are we doing? The question you ask yourself is, did you gain any information? Did you get educated? Did you get updated? That is what this fireside. And the image I want to put out is a familiar image for those who grew back in villages in Ambazonia. You know, in the evenings when people came back from the farm, they gathered around the fire, isn't it, to prepare a meal and telling stories, experiences, and all that. That is what we are here to do. The fireside. It's around a fire. The fire is burning in Ambazonia, but this fire we are gathered around is one that is going to bring us light, the light that we have talked about in terms of education, information, and update. But it's not just about light. Light also brings about warmth. So we are going to get that warmth, and it's going to be a warmth that is also going to be in the face of the cold that we are having, not just the physical one that most of us in the Western world are currently experiencing, but the cold that is being experienced even on ground zero. In the midst of all this, there is this warmth around the fireside. That is why we are gathered here, in order to warm ourselves up, and face the battle, face the war. And with us to guide us, the first part of this, we are going to have this program in two phases. It's going to be kind of a chat between three persons guiding us. And then after that, we'll open it up for questions. I'm going to moderate this panel, and it's I like the panel so much. It's a balanced panel, especially for those who are gender sensitive. It's balanced in terms of those who always think about diaspora versus those at home. It's balanced in every sense of it, young and old. Whatever way you want to put it, you are going to get it. So thank you very much, Team Ambazonia. And I want everybody to give themselves a pat on the back. It's not easy. We all are struggling, each person in their own way. Those who are doing something to push the struggle forward, and in the midst of doing that, they are being called agents of La République. That is part of the game. Those who are even struggling to pull down the struggle, they are doing their own work too. We'll have to continue together fighting this. And so the panel today is made up. I want to welcome first Tumfoin Bo Herbert. He's well known to the struggle, spokesperson for Maurice. Tumfoin, welcome and thanks for accepting to be part of this panel.
Thank you very much. My pleasure, and welcome everyone.
Next, Dr. Emma Osong. Dr. Emma Osong, thank you for being part of this. And this is coming 1 week after your newly released book. We would have opportunity to talk about that later. But congratulations on your new book, Unraveled, which I encourage people to go on Amazon and get a copy. But thank you for the work that you do, not just on behalf of women, kids, and all that, but as a person from Ambazonia and on behalf of Ambazonia. Dr. Emma Osong?
Thank you, Lam, and welcome everybody. I am really thrilled to be here and gathered around with so many who believe in the same collective goal to have a conversation. I am looking forward to it. So thank you for taking up this very important job, Lam, of moderating. Yeah, I'd like to see you put out the best show that you've ever had. I've seen you in action, so I'm excited. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I feel flattered, but again, I'm always a spoiler for most of these things. And last but not the least, our own, and you know, in the last couple of weeks, if you have read anything online, the one thing that has come up is this dichotomy that people try to put between diaspora and home front. And we saw our friend, comrade Abdul Karim. I always want to refer to him as a Muslim Christian scholar. He's one of those rare breeds of people who has been able to blend Islam and Christianity, learning from both worlds. But that's a conversation I'm going to get him on a different day. But today he's here as an activist comrade on the ground, facing the bullets, facing everything, but being able to come on. Comrade Abdul Karim Malik, how are you today, my brother?
Thanks for having me, Bobby Bomb, and thank you for the great work you're doing. I'm elated to share this panel with great comrades on the panel and everyone else joining. Thanks for having me once more.
So again, like I said, it's a simple format, and I'm going to go in reverse order by way of introduction. And since we are talking about the struggle, we are 22 days into the new year 2022. It seems fitting to start off by taking the temperature on the ground. What is the temperature done ground zero, Abdul Karim, in terms of the struggle?
All right, let me continue then by blessing God and thanking him, asking him to provide his blessings and support to the suffering people of Southern Cameroon and to the rest of the world. Of course, like you mentioned earlier in your introductory note, there is this dichotomy. But I'll tell you, whatever the case, the people on the ground are not tired of their struggle. They are not tired for the quest for freedom. Neither are they tired with the confusion that we see. So the ground is resolved. The people are willing, and they are yearning for a platform that will speak for them as one. Yes, there is a lot of things happening, which of course may seem like the ground is cold. But what we fail to realize is that sometimes it has to be like this. Sometimes to say the right thing, you need to use bad words. And sometimes one has to decide between closing a book or turning a page. Ground zero is not closing in a book, but of course, they are turning pages. They are tired of the infighting. They are tired of the confusion. They are tired of autism. They want a home front and a diaspora front that will represent them best they can here on ground and internationally. So from ground zero, and the rest assured, they know that I'm here, and they have asked me to tell you that they are not giving up and they are not giving in. And they're asking me to ask you, if you will. Thank you.
Very great and comforting words. They are turning pages, but they are not turning a book, isn't it? Turning pages. They are not giving up and they are not giving in. Now, from ground zero, we move over to the diaspora Tumfoin. You lead an organization, Morris, that also started out as a platform. Ground zero is yearning for a platform. What is your message? What is the state of the struggle from the perspective of your organization and as a person who is following this day to day? Tumfoin, can you unmute?
I realize I'm muted. Yeah, thank you very much, Bobimbom. Thank you, my co-panelists. Thank you, Dr. Emao Song. Congratulations on the book. Wonderful thing always to put those ideas on paper. They stay forever. Thank you, Brother Abdul Karim. You make all of us proud. You are the light. You tell everyone who is pretending that it's too hot to speak on behalf of Ambazonia while living on ground zero, that it can be done. There's a sacrifice to be paid, and you're paying it. Many are paying it on the ground, including those who are carrying weapons. To them, 1,000 gun salutes. 1,000 gun salutes to those who are in prison, those who are in refugee camps, all of you who are fighting around the world and on ground zero, who believe in doing away with colonial domination and who believe in moving this struggle forward. Yes, yesterday was the 4th anniversary of the creation of Morris. When we gathered at Capitol Heights on that day 4 years ago, the goal was we have a number of organizations who have pursued different paths. And on that day, we said, we need a coordinated platform. We need an umbrella. We need to come under one structure and agree that we can work together, we can collaborate, we can push this struggle forward. Morris laid that foundation, rolled out a roadmap, declared a day when we must affirm our independence, restored, and fight to defend it. And we started off the galvanization and mobilization of our people to get us there. In the in-between, what I ask everyone to notice is what Morris did. We did not fight when a new umbrella emerged in the name of SCACUF. We joined it, we celebrated it, we presented it to the world as the new umbrella. So I salute my members in Morris. I salute everyone who understands that this fight is not about them and it's not about their group. And I hope that from this fire chat today, we can again answer the questions and the concerns that Abdul Karim raised at the moment. They're turning leaves, pages, they're not closing the book, they're not tired, they're not giving in. We have no reason to give in, those of us who live in the diaspora. And we have a huge responsibility to fix the mess that we have put the struggle in. And I hope that tonight begins that job. Thank you very much.
Great words, great signs of humility. Platforms have come, platforms are going, but the work continues. Dr. Emao Song, there's been a clamor, and this is one thing that, again, repeatedly, there is this clamor for maybe the men have messed up enough of this struggle, so a woman should emerge and lead it, and maybe you could be that voice. What has been the role? I mean, there are many women groups all over, SKU, and you name it, Takumbang, everybody doing their part, and I'm glad that you yourself, you've carved out this section of it for yourself, written a book that is about the struggle, your role in it, and all that. But let's talk about the state of affairs from your point of view, 5,000 feet above the ground. What is the state of the struggle currently?
Thank you, Lam, for that question. Let me begin by sending my thoughts and prayers and recognize all the women out there on ground zero, our children, our mothers, and all the victims of this 5-year senseless war. We see you, we hear you. We may not be able to do the right things, but know that we are thinking and sparing no effort in figuring out how to bring the senseless war to a fast and swift end. To your question, Lam, if there is any one person who believes that in a struggle for liberation such as that of the Southern Cameroonians, not to be considered deuxième classe or to have the dignity to live in the land of their birth can be done by them, man or woman, I think they are drinking a Kool-Aid and they need to be reminded that they're drinking from the wrong fountain. So for that, I hope that there isn't that sense of I can do this, but rather the sense that if we are to go far, we need to team up. which brings me now to the question of why ACT, Amazonia Coalition Team, decided in the midst of what is today tribal wars in full force to call a fireside chat. It's because the ghost of division is in broad daylight. We are seeing it manifest in front of us in the worst kind of ways. And by so doing, I want to say that the singular reason I accept for the first time to present myself in this format is to say that we come out as Amazonia Coalition Team with a message that is not that the tirade that's going on out there in broad daylight should be the prevailing message, but rather that as Amazonians, today, we need to, at the start of the year, as you pointed out, we need to ask this question: have our women, have our mothers, have our children, have our young boys not suffered enough? Let me pause here and see whether this question can be answered. But of course, you can unmute your mic, because then we'll have to engage in responding. So it is not a rhetorical question. It is to say that Amazonia Coalition Team is a gathering of groups, of factions, of diverse personalities, as well as intent, with one purpose only, that is a mutual benefiting purpose, as I stated earlier, to determine the cause of the future of Southern Cameroonian children. So I answer your question by going back to Amazonia Coalition Team, Team Amazonia, because it's a platform I am deeply committed to, not for fear, favor, or persecution, or for position or leadership role. No, far from it, but rather to stand here unapologetically and tell my brothers and sisters that it's a platform for all factions, pro-independent, those who believe that we stand on a soil and own it as equally as our brothers in La République do, and that only by coming together, as we did, signing up to a peace process, albeit flawed, yes, I said it, flawed, but the only credible international third-party process that we can engage in. So let me end here by saying, Liam, and let me say this, and I'll cede the floor. In the 30s, Churchill was thought to be on the wrong side of history. Great Britain was identified and referred to as an imperialistic country. But we know what the truth is. Churchill was a racist. Yes, British folks might hate me for saying that, but go check the history. And Great Britain was a colonizer, as the Indians fought and died for self-rule, not even independence, self-rule. So we are dealing with a regime that is not only racist, it's genocidal. So don't ask me, ask the Norwegian Refugee Council. So we must come together. We must coalesce around the only thing we have and give hope to the people who are the frontline victims.
Thank you very much for that segue. I was wondering how I was going to get back to ACT, having asked about the state of the struggle, and you beautifully put me back on track. And so let's get back to Team Amazonia, to ACT. The birth certificate of ACT carries the Swiss-led process as its, call it, mandate. So let's focus on that for a minute. And there are tons of questions with respect to that. But I want to put this straight to you, Comrade Herbert Tumfon. Where are we with the Swiss-led process? I've read things is dead, is on life support. Where are we in that process? It's 2 years now or 3 years. We don't hear anything directly, bits and pieces here and there. Where are we?
Thank you very much. The favorite line from those who rejected it from the very beginning is that it is dead. But, you know, I don't know that people worry about the dead except to cry die. But when you talk too much about a process that is supposedly dead, it is obviously because it is alive and you're worried about it. You're worried you did not support it. You're wondering how you fit into the process. We said very clearly from the very beginning that ACT was an open door platform. We invited everyone who is working towards the independence of Southern Cameroon, the restoration of the independence, and the recognition of Ambazonia. We invited everyone to come in. We told everyone who believes that this will end in a negotiated settlement, that we will obtain justice at the table of negotiations. We said, come in, join us. Obviously, people who rejected it from the very beginning have had other communions. They have met in general assemblies, the latest one being in Toronto, the only purpose of which was, you know, to set up a structure that was already existing and to pursue what they call a multiple mediation that does not exist. We've heard the remark made by Ambassador Thibault Nagy, the former Undersecretary for State Department for African Affairs, who said he thinks this is a process for process sake. What he was saying was, you cannot allow Cameroon, the international community cannot allow Cameroon to play the world around this process. And Cameroon has tried very hard to play the world, which is they have resisted coming to the table. That is not a surprise. We knew from the very beginning that Cameroon was going to resist coming to the table. The reason Cameroon went to the Swiss and said they wanted a process was because they were hoping that Ambazonia was going to reject it. Sadly, some amongst us have felt the need to reject it. If you want a process, if you believe that this will end in a negotiated settlement, you have to embrace a process that has been endorsed by everyone in the international community that matters. And if you don't believe in the Swiss, show us another country that has got a process that's putting one in place, and Team Ambazonia will be first to join you on that process. But don't sell us an inexistent process. Don't sell us something that does not exist. The people of Ambazonia deserve to be heard by the international community. And that process, when you said it had the birth certificate of the Swiss, it had the birth certificate of the international community, because everyone that matters in the international community supported that process. That process was the first act of recognition of Ambazonia, because that act recognized that the other party to the genocidal war was Ambazonia. And they set a table and asked La République du Cameroun to report to that table to work with Ambazonia as equal party. Now we are back to 1608, equal party. And so I'll just say the process is where we can talk about tonight in more detail slightly, but it is also a process where too much cannot be said, because obviously there are many things that are happening that we cannot talk about. And there is one big thing tonight that we can say, and we have said from the very beginning. If Mr. Biya walks into any other country, speaks with any other leader, and says to them, as he is saying in note verbals to the United Nations and all the others, that I am not coming to the table because they are not there yet. It is because the Ambazonians holding out. Now, obviously, no one is going to sign on to a deal in Switzerland or anywhere else that does not grant our people independence. But by refusing to go to the table, you're basically saying, I'm not looking at any deal. And the only deal I have is a war to offer my people. And I say it is wrong. I'll stop here.
Thank you very much, Tumfo Mbohabed. You packed a lot into that, and I'll come back to some of that. But I want to get over to Comrade Abdul Karim. You went to Switzerland, you were part of the meetings, and when you flew back to Cameroon, you were arrested, and I think the Swiss had to play a role in your liberation. The question that many people, and I'm going to the Swiss process itself, the question that many people have had is, the government of Cameroon is too close to the Swiss. The Swiss there are many businesses in Cameroon owned and run by the Swiss. A lot of the cocoa, and I know people talk about that, you guys have eaten some Swiss cheese. But I mean, how credible are the Swiss in engaging this process? Are we not going to have a repeat of the many things that the Swiss have been known to do? Many Africans who died there because they were seeking similar things. The huge Swiss finance market, isn't it? Why does Team Ambazonia believe that the Swiss have what it takes to get this process going?
Yeah, and thank you for that question. And thank you, Comrade Bo, for throwing a lot of light on these misconceptions. Comrade Lam and my comrades are here with us. Listen, ignorance is no bliss. It has always been a big problem when we substitute intelligence with arrogance. The only way to know what you don't know is to seek for it. Seeking for it includes reading, asking those who know about it, learning, checking on websites, engaging experts in the field. This is how we can establish whether or not something is good or bad. I think it's a fallacy to blame the Swiss on basis of our interactions, it be political, social, or economic, with any country, especially like Republic of Cameroon, because you accuse the United States of same measures. You accuse Canada of same measures. You accuse England, Belgium, Norway of same measures. What you have to do is recognize that this war is being managed on interest and need. What is it that you need and what is your interest? The Swiss offered a mediation process. Our people have refused to check the basic definition. I'm not talking about the cosmological or philosophical definition of the term. Basic, I mean dictionary definition. What is mediation? A simple process. Number one, for it to be a mediation, it has to be a process whereby a third party assists two or more parties to prevent, solve, or manage a conflict in a very equitable manner. That is by definition the process. And that is by definition the intent and purpose of the mediator. Who are you dealing with here? You're dealing with Southern Cameroonians of close to 100 years of academia, a rich one. They are not forcing anything through your neck. You have the right, by definition of the same process, to exit when you find it fishy. But here you are, a people who have been marginalized, killed, subjugated, colonized for 60 years by a black country. You have channeled your complaints in writing, you have protested and all not. It didn't work. They pushed you to the walls and your children decided to defend their parents with sticks and catapults. And in 2 years, the international community, whether we like it or not, independence is being offered. From the creation of the world, independence has been offered. And it's not a matter of today. Including Israel, where Jesus Christ came from, was under colonization, first by the Babylonians, secondly by the Greeks, and then the Romans. Including Saudi Arabia was under subjugation. Is this not what the literature tells us, that Muhammad conquered Mecca and saved it from the occupiers? So some people have been privileged, so to say, to be those who offer this independence. Now, the society who decides who becomes free or who doesn't become free offers you the table on which you know that by international politics, that is the only way to discuss your way out of this predicament that you found yourself in. The same thing to do if your argument has been that. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, you're on, Comrade.
Yes, we can hear you. 5 on 5.
The same thing to do as an oppressed people is to embrace this process and stay there. Why do you embrace it and stay there? Is to buttress your argument that, listen, we are not fighting because we want to fight. We are not talking because we want to fight. The only reason we defend ourselves today is because we want to talk. We have wanted to talk and they have denied us the possibility. And a country like Switzerland shows up to say, look, come on board. And they tell you exactly that, look, we are doing this with support and total permission of Canada. Canada is supporting us, not just morally, they are also putting finances into it. What does that tell you? That Canada has an interest. What is Canada? I'm not asking where is Canada. What is Canada? A child of Great Britain. A country that is being run by a prime minister, subservient to the Queen of England, supports a process that concerns a former territory of England. You reject it. The USA comes up to say, look, we endorse this and we support it. England comes up to say, yes, we endorse it, we support it. Norway, the United Nations, including the sick man of Africa called AU, endorses it. What you must do as a sane people who are oppressed is to embrace it, correct it where you can, put your touches on it, and when you find it not working, when you see that it meets a dead end, you are not the one to define so. It is going to define itself when it meets a dead end. You can pull out, and the world would see that you were the one who wanted to talk. A dialogue is not a dialogue. Even when a monologue has been done 10 times, it doesn't become a dialogue. And for dialogue to progress, people must be willing to change internally and externally. So people can say what they want about those who have held this process, haven't eaten some cheese, but I'm sure that they got answers. And we are not going to, I don't want to blame comrades, but I only want them to realize that this is the only process we have. You were told this by the Irish, by the Swiss themselves, that the only available one is that of the Swiss. Join it and amend it. And this is exactly what we have been saying. If there is something I'm not seeing right with the process, how would you tell me if you are not with me following it up? And just to chime in regarding where we are with the process, I can say it plainly. We are on the second phase of the process. A mediation process basically has 4 phases. It has the exploration phase. This exploration phase constitutes the mediating country or the mediating organization doing feasibility studies and ensuring that the conflict has some ripeness possibility for mediation. Listen to me. South Sudan, 30 years before the world considered it ripe for mediation. Southern Cameroons, 2 years. And you tell them that, no, we are not ripe. We can fight some more. No, we are not fighters. We only defend. This is why, technically, I've argued elsewhere that there is war here, but we are not in that war. We are defending ourselves. That's all we are doing. War has been brought to us because we've not said, okay, look, we are challenging anybody to war. We are simply defending ourselves within our rights and in the confines of our territory. The second phase of mediation process is preparation. That's where we are. Where the facilitators, the mediating country, ensure that parties understand fully and completely what it takes to be on a negotiation table. That party have all their members, all inclusive, because one of the features of mediation is inclusivity. That there is total and complete inclusivity. In this case, that egg of C is with the team. That Sisiku is with the team. That Lambert is in the team. Abdul Karim is the team. We don't want a case where after agreements have been reached between 2 parties, a faction of the oppressed come up again with other things. This is basic. This is the right way for mediation to go on. The next step is the mediation and the negotiation themselves. And the last one is implementation of whatever would be agreed. So here we are. But the most important feature of a mediation process at this level, the most important, read me, is confidentiality, especially on the side of the oppressed. So we cannot play the cards on the table. It has to be close to our chest. And read me, La Republique is doing that pretty well. We are the ones selling ourselves out there, but thank God for art. I want to thank God for the IG. I thank God for Morix, for Scam, for Ruan, for what is that? For myself, for my awesome, for NCNC. Keeping this process alive has been the job of art. I want to thank all of these members for doing this and for keeping these cards where they are, because this is where it belongs. There would be a time where you will not be asking Team Ambazonia, where are we? Because it's going to be common sense. Common sense by definition means knowledge which is public. It's going to be public knowledge every step of the way. But for now, ACT is not a lobbying organization. ACT is not a civil society organization. We are here to prepare Southern Cameroons onto negotiations. It could be with this one that has been proposed with the Swiss or any other one. But our duty is to make sure that Southern Cameroons is ready for eventual and inevitable mediation and negotiations. Let me pause here for my Emma to tell me what she thinks about my exegesis on the questions that I just answered. Thank you.
No, I think you did a fantastic job, even just laying out the geography, if you want to call, or the topography of what negotiations and mediation. People, we hear these things, and all of a sudden, everybody has become an expert in negotiation and mediation. Every Ambazonia has become an expert, I can tell you that, But just laying that out, those steps and all that, is a great way now people can focus to see where we are. But you mentioned something about getting the other teams, the other members into the team. And Dr. Osong, you shared that too at the beginning. What we need at this point is to get our team together, our act together. Initially, there were many groups, many persons who were invited to the Swiss talks. Many showed up and many left after that for different reasons. And so I want to ask, Dr. Osong, are you there? What are some of the steps? What are some of the things ACT is doing or ACT should be doing in order to get the other groups on board? It is not an easy process because, again, like the others don't trust ACT and ACT doesn't trust the others. So what is it that needs to be done? Each person, you as an individual and in all your engagements, what needs to be done and how are you going to go about bringing the other groups on board?
Did you see the big smile on my face to a very serious question? I smile because, Liam, if this was easy to do, if there was a magic pill to take and get that much needed collaboration going, I think we'll all pay whatever is being asked for that pill. Suffice to say at this point, let me make a few observations and then attempt to answer the question. I'd like to begin by saying that revolutions come into this world as bastard children. That's a statement from Jefferson in 1776, right? They are half impoverished and half compromised, to quote a great statesman, as they labored to liberate the great America that we all enjoy today from Britain. So he said, again, let me quote, revolutions come into the world as bastard children, half impoverished and half compromise. Our side is furnishing the compromise. So the question for us is, what is the other side doing, right? If we are willing to accept that we would be the ones to compromise internally so we can go up against, and so this was in a context where Southern Carolinas were willing to side and die for the king. So in trying to bring the teams that are holding out, and I have a term for them. I call them the never Swissers, who believe that somehow Switzerland does not have the leverage over La Republique, and who also believe that, to their credit, of course, who also believe that the long-standing relationship of Paul Biya, whose second home is Geneva, somehow puts a negative stamp on the Swiss MFA and the mediator, Gunther. So these people have a beef, and I'm thinking they're holding out for all these various reasons. But as my comrade Abdul Karim pointed out, once you then come into the house and figure out how to strengthen the process, the only process you have, rather than throwing it out. So my role here today is not to give the pill or even attempt what could possibly bring those who are holding out to engage, but rather to say, as I stated earlier, in asking the question, have our women, our mothers and children not suffered enough? Here we have, through ACT, Team Amazonia, a window of opportunity to engage with the international community. Tim von Herbert mentioned that earlier. This opportunity, some group, somebody, someone out there is asking me, a stakeholder, albeit not frontline victim, to throw out the opportunity to bring an end to the deadly war on our people in search for something that has not been proposed. In the language and in the landscape of mediation, or rather negotiation, there is a concept called BATNA. For those who understand these types of stuff, your best alternative to a negotiated agreement. What that says is this: what are you willing to accept that would satisfy your interest? So if you don't accept the Swiss process, give us what you are willing to accept in lieu of that. I have heard this comment.
The meeting. 6 o'clock meeting.
I have heard the comment about the need for multi-mediation, but that's something that can be done under the existing platform called ACT. We at ACT, let me speak for myself, and I can clearly believe that some other members within ACT would agree that we don't need the current diversion that is to create something else when what you have is not broken or can be shored up and strengthened. The goal is to reinforce, aggregatively strengthen what you have, not to throw it out. We are not stupid and somehow poor, hungry, and desperate, the PhDs of the world, poor, hungry, and desperate persons who are gathered in ACT. We are also not looking to be self-serving. And lastly, we believe, and I can say unequivocally, that the team that constitute ACT believes it's the true, correct, and right thing to do, to continuously push the international community to bring La République to the table. Obviously, if it were easy, and if La République understands that the effects of it being on the table would not be so deadly, I'm sure it would have come. It is for that reason that we have a process that appears stale, but behind the scenes, we understand that some things cannot be done in the public square. Now, to your point, the division that we are seeing manifesting in the public is regrettable. We're here to say that ACT is open and inviting all and sundry, all the desperate groups who believe in the same goal, to come in and let's figure out what are the best ways to prosecute a war on our own people. Clearly, what is currently going on is not working in our favors. We've just heard Thibault Nash said what he said. This is someone clearly who is reading the lay of the land and telling you directly, we are not making this, we are giving La République the off-ramp to say, I have nobody to negotiate with. How does all these competing agendas help us? Again, back to my point, our goal today is to communicate to anyone who has influence, who has a role to play in their own individual groups, that ACT is the platform brought together to ensure that the international community is not given an off. Where they intervene in less than 3 years in Yemen and the Yemeni with the Houthis got the Stockholm Agreement. We're yet to get there. Where the international community intervened in Ukraine today, we are seeing it in real life time, where distant conflicts, the US has already opined on it because, of course, it is interests are at stake. We have seen it in Kosovo. Of course, the South Sudanese had to wait 20 years. I am here to say, because I work directly with the first-hand victims on the ground, that I cannot sit back, stand out the opportunity to advocate for a swift end. So my answer, Liam, is from my heart to the AGOVCs, to the Sisiko camp, to the Sako camp, to anyone out there with the gift, the time, talent, and treasures to say, how in the world do you believe we can solve this? Yes, there is the concept of conflict ripeness. There's the concept of contender on the ground, but let's get it. We have a process. We need to build on that while also doing the other things that other people know so well to do. So I answer your question rather than prescriptively, descriptively to say, ACT is appealing for partners in a singular objective to come together. A coalition is what it is an alliance, temporary, to come together for a mutually purposive agenda. And what is that agenda? If you believe in it, then join us. If you don't, then you'll be in the business of creating other platforms. Granted, there is room to improve on our side, our processes, our goals, and our resources. But on the issue of resolving a genocidal war, this is the clearest path I know. And my voice here may not be the loudest, the most heard, or the most articulate. It is from my heart to all those who give via the off-ramp. I have nobody to negotiate with. If that message cannot bring us together, then perhaps the issue of outright winning a war is what people prefer. And let's look to Sudan 20 years hence, what that goal was.
So, Dr. Also, thank you very much. But before you, I just want a yes or no from you. And this is the same thing I'll do to all of you. I just want to clear something out from the get-go. Are you committed to an independent Ambazonia as the only solution you will support?
That's to me.
Yes.
An independent Ambazonia is the ultimate goal.
Yes, yes.
Negotiations are the pathway to getting us there. What happens when two parties come to the table is the give and take. Let's look to Bougainville as a case study.
Dr. Awesome.
We may get there, but we may get there incrementally.
Yes, I'll get there. Comrade Abdul Karim. Same question to you. Are you committing, is an independent Ambazonia the solution you are seeking for? The only one?
Yeah, I'm sure I'm the only Southern Cameroonian who reaffirmed that commitment publicly. None has done that in the year 2020.
Okay, so that is it. Well, Comrade Bo.
My only surprise is that the question is even being asked. There's only one solution. It's an independent Ambazonia.
So the reason for the question is because, and you can just stay on now because I'm coming to you. One of the things that has come up with this process, the Swiss process, is many people think that those of you in ACT, you are putting up the independence of Ambazonia as what you seek, but you are hoping that you may end up with something like federation. So you are federalist couched as independentists or independentists anyhow, but I mean, that is the point. And I want you to address something. We started off by addressing the question of the Swiss, whether they agreed, and you live in the United States. Why have you not sought out the United States as many people are yearning for the US to take this up? Why are you not looking at the United States, or like Comrade Cho and the ADF keep talking about Norway? What is wrong with these other alternatives that we could seek to what the Swiss already have and work towards that? What is wrong with that?
The first thing I would like to say is that, you know, when the accused act of being, you know, working towards federalism, it means you were not listening to Toronto, because everybody who met in Toronto set a platform for federalists to come and talk about, for people who are sporting the Cameroon jersey at AFCON games, and, you know, and telling people that we are one and indivisible. Those are the people who are working towards a one and indivisible Cameroon. Far from it from us. But also there are people who are selling shadows. You know, when people tell you that, you know, experts are coming from nowhere, you know, that you should just wait for Basque Country, it's going to happen. No one is coming on a horse. There's no Moses who is coming. We are Moses. We are Aaron. We are the ones who are going to take these people across. We are the ones who have to believe in our cause. And so very clearly, when you also have people who are willing to go by midnight, you know, with handcuffs on hand or not, but at least at gunpoint, to the home of the Archbishop of Yaoundé to negotiate by night, or to not negotiate, as the government of Cameroon might want to say, you offer a platform for the government of Cameroon to say to you that we are indeed looking for a solution that is internal. If everyone remembers those resolutions that came out from the CDN conference in Toronto, one of the big things they told you in the resolution, and everybody needs to reread them, they told you that they will prepare you for internal negotiations. There's not a single line in 6 pages of CDN resolutions that said we are for the restoration of the independence of Southern Cameroons. But 7 times in that resolution, they talk about self-determination, and they reaffirm their support, setting up a platform that will allow leaders to work together. And one of the goals is to get to internal negotiations on a Cameroonian thing. So the issue here is not whether the world will offer us another solution. We can go back and look at history. When the Palestinians thought that the best way for them to do this was to thumb their nose at the international community, they are still nearly 100 years away. 100 years after, nearly 100 years after, they're still waiting for a negotiation. They're still waiting for a table to be set for them to negotiate their independence. The people of East Timor did the same thing. But when they embraced negotiations, they were capable to go there. And no one, people still peddle this idea that getting the negotiations was too easy, and that it must mean that someone is trying to corner the people of Ambazonia to a place. Look, and they keep saying, you know, Cameroon has not committed. If they're committed, where's their document? And I asked them just one question. We at ACT signed a document. We signed a document committing to this process. I'm sorry, what's that? Let any Ambazonian who has seen that document, you know, show it to us. When Abdul Karim talked a moment ago, he stressed the importance of confidentiality. That's part of the reason why people don't see the documents. So it is not about people sitting out and saying, we've not seen the document from Cameroon. I'll give you another example. The surprise is big that we landed a possibility of negotiation, because Somaliland, which just got invited last month, earlier this month, as a matter of fact, to the Democracy Forum by President Joe Biden, Somaliland declared its independence restored 30 years ago. They still don't have a negotiation today. They don't have a process. They don't have international support. Yes, of course, it's beginning to show now that we have a country like Kenya saying we will open a liaison office, going to the point of getting into diplomatic rift with Somalia. You have the United States and people like Tibonaj saying, you know, we should recognize this, the people of Somaliland. We have people like the World Bank who have started extending direct support to them. The people of Ambazonia, the reason that your process was so quick to come about was because of everything that you've got, including 1608. The people of Somaliland had something different. they surrendered their independence to Somalia. It is something you did not do. And so the world wants to fix your problem, and you need to get to a place where you talk to the world, because everything else is talking to ourselves. For those who say, why didn't you work with the United States? Yes, we are working with the United States. We are working with State Department. Don't worry about what Tibonaj said about there's nothing going on. We are going to not tell you exactly what it is that's going on, but State Department knows that they have delegated US institutions that are working with ACT, that have provided us capacity building, that are supporting our process to prepare for these negotiations. And it is important for the people of Ambazonia to know that that work is ongoing. And the US has been very clear. We will not set up a mediation process. And they have pointed, go negotiate, go work with the Swiss. The diplomatic community, before going to Toronto, spoke with ACT, and they shared with us the message they were taking to Toronto, and they delivered that message very clearly. It was a very simple message. You have one process, it is the Swiss-led process, go join it. And they know that.
Can I jump in here, Liam? I don't know if
30 seconds.
30 seconds, thank you.
Oh, hang on 1 second, hang on. Please, can everybody mute themselves? If you are not, please. Thank you. Yeah, Dr. Osam.
I think your question to the Swiss was something, if I recall, something to the effect, why are other countries not on board? I don't know if the Ambazonian people know this. There are something called the Friends of the Swiss process. In addition to Switzerland, of course, we've heard of Canada. Of course, Norway is part of that Friends of the Swiss process, Germany, the United Kingdom, the Vatican, Belgium, and yes, the United States. Now, let's ask ourselves a simple question. Would the United States poke its finger into the eyes of the Switzerland just to kick them off and take over a process, diplomatically speaking? If the answer is yes, then perhaps dissing the Swiss process and going after the United States is a great way to do so. So I think we need to understand something that is par for the course, that in politics, there are no friends, there's just interest. So these list of countries called the Friends of the Swiss process, Germany, Switzerland, Canada, the Vatican, Belgium, United Kingdom, Norway, etc., and some African countries who are yet to make themselves known, it stands to reason that this is about interest. As I said earlier, we're supplying the compromise by coming and showing up to the table and struggling to get our internal affairs in order. The bastard is the other side. Excuse my language. So,
thank you, Dr. Osong. I mean, let me not pose it to you, but let me get to Comrade Abdul Karim. So the other issue with respect to this Swiss process is Dr. Osong just laid out the Friends of the Swiss process. Yet, for all these years, La République has been dragging its feet. You have not been able to come to the table for anything based on what people say. And the most recent update that we heard about the Swiss process comes from a member of ACT, and that's from a comrade who talked about a confidence-building measure that was taken. They were asked to do something with respect to Ghost Town, and they did, and yet La République still did not come up. Why is it that the Swiss are unable to drag La République to the table? And that is what people are pointing to. And because they are not able to bring it, they are thinking that if it were the US or if it were some other major partner, they would have been able to bring La République to the table. Is there something we are missing there?
Thank you, comrade, for that question. Can you still hear me?
Absolutely.
Before that, let me say this. To be enrolled or to join ACT, though ACT is an open door establishment, to join it, your baptismal name, your creed must be total and complete independence of Southern Cameroon's Ambazonia. That is to begin with. So, you know, it is very clear. Jesus Christ has left us with one thing, and I wonder if we think about it, that we should remove the wool from our eyes before talking about the dust in another's. When people accuse ACT of this, and like Comrade Bull mentions, ACT doesn't meet with federalists, meeting, let alone understanding them. But our comrades do. In this period, after 20,000 of our people have been killed and all those that I wouldn't be mentioning in the jails and stuff, we still talk with those who enable the genocide. ACT doesn't do that. So that said, let me get to the basic question that you're answering. I call them basic. They are supposed to be basic, especially with movements in this struggle. Even if we are not experts in the field, the essence of education is to be able to process information, is to be able to solve problems. So it doesn't matter which field of work you studied at, but you should be able to use that knowledge to process information. And today, no one can excuse learning because we have the internet. Good thing about it is connected to everyone, and bad thing, same reason, connected to everyone. But we have confused the duty of the mediator versus the duty of the oppressor. By its nature, mediation tables have always posted the oppressor as the last person. Oppressors never welcome mediation and negotiation process. Listen to me, Southern Cameroonians, they never welcome it. As a matter of fact, they resist it, they sabotage it, they infiltrate it, they hope that it is dead, especially in a case like yours, a case that primary 3 children will win it legally against the 1,000 intellectuals of La Republic. They will win it intellectually. So this oppressor has done it well, but I know they will fail because this struggle is really and truly God's ordained. They have done what this African proverb says, that if you want to eat an elephant on your path, chop it into pieces. This is what they have understood, to stay away from this process, to stay away from sitting as equal parties to Southern Cameroonians. Let's chop them into pieces. Let's ensure that they never get together. That is the only way to steal a house from a children whose father is dead. So while we confuse all of these things and say that the Swiss is not doing enough, the Swiss will not force the oppressor onto the table. The Swiss will not force the oppressor on the table. If the United States was the mediating country, she will not force anyone on a mediation table. They will have to enter into the conflict in another measure, not via mediation. Once you say you are a mediator, there are characteristics you must uphold. You must be impartial or at best multi-partial. You must be neutral. So what kind of mediators do we have? Basically, we have 2 types. We have facilitative mediators, whose job is basically to offer the mediation process, train the parties, shuttle information between these parties left and right. They are not concerned with the contents. They are only concerned with the process. We have another type of mediation, which is a directive mediation. In this case, the mediator is concerned with both process and content. This is for the sake of education only, because most mediating countries, most mediators are in between the two. They are in between facilitative and directive. They can use certain leverages. Sometimes they do so indirectly. I'm asking my people, when you see the United States pull some cards slowly, do you think they're doing it on behalf of United States, on behalf of the process, or as a friend of the process? Take that home. We have failed to do our job. We have given La Republic a way out. We have told the world that we are not prepared for negotiations by staying away from the one table. Thank God that there is a concept known as the concept of the righteous few. I'm here to tell Southern Cameroonians that ACT has served that role. I'm not saying that we are perfect. As a matter of fact, I think that we have not done enough actually to bring other folks into the platform, but we've done a lot. There are letters that would get into the archives of our country. Letters that this body produced, channeled to the right quarters, that saves you and serves you. Again, we have to be confidential. This is why we went into the process to learn. Just so you know, we've been into different learning workshops, more than 6 of them. We've met those who saved South Sudan, those who saved South Africa, those who saved Colombia. We've done so collectively and we've done so independently. We are learning on your behalf. We are not learning to enrich our head on your behalf, so that the little trust you've given us, we can use whatever we learn to protect you. I would say that ACT is protecting Southern Cameroons. We don't have an interest. The mediator and the mediating countries have an interest. We have a need. We need to be free. We need independence. That versus interest is something else. Interests are things you can do without. So I'm saying that all the mediating countries' friends can do without all their economic interests in La République du Cameroon and Southern Cameroon, including France, can survive without us and La République du Cameroon. But we are telling the world that we will not survive until we have our freedom. That is different. So we don't have interest, we have a need. Let's not confuse these issues. Tomorrow, Southern Cameroons will be mediating somewhere, God willing. And we shall be in the same position where we shall be looking at our interests, not paying attention to the need of the country or the oppressed people we're trying to mediate for. May God make us be better. But what is there to say? I'm saying that Southern Cameroonians have not allowed the responses that education provides to answer basic questions. They have blocked it with surrogacy, which is a bad thing. What you must understand is that when people use your comrades to have you stand on, to rise to a level, those people cannot be your friends. Anybody that would ask us to leave a process without another process is not our friend. We are matured enough to tell anyone that, look, we are holding this process. We shall dump it when we find it not working. But if you have a better one, propose it for us. That proposition has not come.
Comrade Abdul, just before you go, because you know, I belong to a forum where there are disciples of Fongoji Dinka who talk a lot about constitutionality, and I hear you calling this. Why are you insisting on saying Southern Cameroons? And I've not heard you use the term Ambazonia yet. Is that deliberate? And is there a problem? I mean, this is an aside, but just for clarity's sake, what is the preference for Southern Cameroons over Ambazonia?
All right, so let me give you the answer, though I'm surprised someone like you would put me on this spot. Number one, I'm on ground zero. And number two,
I needed that. I needed that.
Southern Cameroon has a better case than Ambazonia. This doesn't make Ambazonia a little title. You see, Boko Haram is Hausa. It means that Western education is forbidden. But that connotation today sounds, you don't even know the meaning, Boko Haram. But for you, it's a terrorism title. And this is exactly what they have tagged the name of our nation, Ambazonia, into. But Southern Cameroons, I'm not even talking about British Southern Cameroons. Because when we obtained the Westminster modeled, styled constitution in 1960, it became Southern Cameroons and not even British Southern Cameroons. This is the name that entered into the records of the United Nations. As a matter of fact, there is Southern Cameroons, there is French Cameroon, and there's La République du Cameroon. There's nothing else. So when we talk about constitutionality, instead, this is the case we have. Southern Cameroons is a state. What is a state? It's a state before it got into any kind of union. That didn't work. That didn't start off, by the way, with La République du Cameroon. Southern Cameroons is a state. What is a state? A territory, a people, and a government. This we obtained as far back as 1954. So the arguments are stronger. And listen, people have asked similar questions. How do you survive on the ground? I pray to God. I use the little knowledge I got from school and from you all And the first thing I should do with such knowledge is to protect myself and leave the rest to God. I cannot be careless. But now you put me on the spot. But I say that. And for those of you who engage the international community, tell me about it. They have no argument, including the Queen's people, the Parliament of England, their embassies. They get tongue-tied when you say Southern Cameroon, because as a matter of fact, they titled it. So listen, let me end with this. It's like the word mediator and facilitator. You see, comrades like Dr. Cho have come to say the Swiss is not a facilitator. They are just not a mediator. It's just a facilitator. So look, these are interchangeable words depending on what process, on what level you are in the process. Likewise, the title we have for our country, Ambazonia, and the name of this state, Southern Cameroons, are interchangeable. It goes with that time, and you need to know when to use it. You need to know when to say Jesus and when to say Messiah. You need to know when to say Bible and when to say the Holy Book, but it means the same thing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And that puts me, Comrade Boggs, before I come to you, Dr. Osop, because I think one of the issues we are facing is, too many people are confused about the role of ACT. People think that you have become the experts who are going to be negotiating, and they say none of you has what it takes. You are not experts in negotiation. How are you engaging in the process? People come also to question the role of HD and the foreign ministry in Switzerland. Can you lay that out for us? Your role as ACT, the mediator, HD, who is who, and what role are they playing in each of that? Comrade Bo.
Yeah, thank you very much, and I thank my comrades Mao Song and Abdul Karim for all the education they're dishing out there. Let me just say very briefly that the confusion is well intended. It's for a specific goal. A specific goal is, how do we discredit this thing that we did not bring about? That we did not sign on to. How could it possibly be happening without us? Let us find a way of cutting it down, of destroying it. Because AGOV-C was setting the table for negotiations and felt that negotiations were ripe when we were meeting in Brussels 2 times with the European Institute for Peace. But it certainly was no longer ripe for negotiations once the Swiss were on board. Because one process was negotiated and put in place by AGOV-C, and the other process was not AGOV-C. We've got this process. So what you have there are different actors, and I think Abdul Karim has spent some time talking about the issues of mediation. Let me talk a little bit here about who the actors are on the table and how you distinguish between them. The government of Switzerland is the mediator in this process. The government. When we took an engagement, we took it with the government of Switzerland. We directed that undertaking both to the government of Switzerland, to the international community that supported the process, and informed the government, delegated the government of Switzerland to inform the government of La République du Cameroun of where we stand. Now, that is the same process that the government of La République du Cameroun followed to get the Swiss to inform us that they were willing to come to negotiations. Now, remember, it is La République du Cameroun that first made the move. We did not make the first move. Although there were letters generated at the beginning, like all of us who were demonstrating and going to all embassies and all countries that we considered friendly, that we considered belonging to the civilized world, we went to these countries and we told them, we want you to intervene. So Switzerland was one of those countries that took it up with La République du Cameroun. La République du Cameroun, for some reason, felt comfortable with the Swiss and said, yes, we are willing to do this if we can get them to the table. There are the issues people raise, which is, where do the Swiss keep their interest? Well, you will not find one person who will not have interest in La République du Cameroun. And by the way, if you want to answer that question, can you think just for a moment, if the Swiss find themselves where they find themselves today, does that protect their interest or jeopardize it? if they are seen as the people bringing Southern Cameroons to the table as equal party, does it jeopardize or does it help their interests? Who else, like the French, would be supporting that? You can see that the French are not openly right out there supporting the process because the French are protecting their interests. The Swiss are playing up their DNA, and their DNA has been in neutrality, in mediation, in supporting processes that facilitate the pathway to justice and peace. Now, HD, people have spoken a lot about HD. HD is a technical firm, a non-governmental technical firm that has specialized over the years in supporting the Swiss government in implementing such processes all over the world. The last one, I just take one example. Let's talk about Libya. The Swiss started that process, the Swiss government. HD supported the process. Negotiations held both in Geneva, sometimes at the United Nations. But a last part of those negotiations had to happen in Tunisia. The Tunisian government became the facilitator of the final mile of the negotiations getting to the agreement in Libya that led to an interim government, led to elections last December. So what we are looking at here is you don't take the NGO, the technical firm that supports the work of the government, and you confuse it with the mediator. Now, at the table, along with the others, and this is where Ambazonians make the mistake, they say we want the United States to be necessarily the mediator. You don't need 1,001 mediators. When they support the process, you go to the table and you start working out of there. That is when you tell the United States or tell another country, we think you should be the guarantor of what comes out of here. Now, that is where a country like the United States could use its leverage, could use its power to push for implementation as a guarantor of the process. You ask the question, who are we and what role are we playing as ACT? Again, we said, you need to set a table that brings all Ambazonian groups that believe in independence together. That is what we set up ACT for. Again, we did not even set it up. The international community, realizing that we needed that instrument, encouraged us to put that process in place. That is why we put it in place. And we said we invite everyone because they want it to be inclusive. We have no intention to play experts. We have no intention to be the ones at the negotiating table. If anyone has read anything, if anyone has been through any capacity building, you would know that when you are doing negotiations, what really happens is that experts are hired. Every Ambazonian can go on, log on right now, or when we are through with this town hall, log on or Fireside Chat, log on to the United Nations website and look for mediation. Look at how the process works. The process, you set up a multi-donor trust fund, is run by the United Nations, that helps you hire the best negotiators, the best experts in the world that can help you push this process forward. They may not necessarily be Southern Cameroonians, but they will work under the direction of the political leaders of Southern Cameroon, put together in a platform. They will direct that process. They will be the ones negotiating, your experts. They may be Southern Cameroonians, they may not be, but you want to take the best experts in the world. That trust fund put together by donors will fund that process. It will not be the Swiss. It will fund that process. That's what happened in the case of South Sudan. That's why you ended up in Naivasha, Kenya, with the Comprehensive Peace Agreement, a framework that allowed a 5-year interim period during which the people of South Sudan could decide on their own whether they wanted, through a referendum, to go on to independence or stay as a self-governing part of Sudan. After 5 years, we know what happened. But that process now brought in all other actors like the World Bank and the IMF as the supported issues of of development and all of that. And they brought together the guarantors. Today, with that process over, you still have the Pope obliged to go down on his knees and kiss the feet of Southern Cameroonian South Sudan leaders, begging them to deal with the issues of peace and to deal with the issues that Ambazonians have today, which is everyone wants their own government. Everyone wants to run this thing as if it belongs to them. The reason we set up a platform is because the world wants us united in what we seek. And it should be so clear for us, because all of us are for independence of Southern Cameroons, all of us who want the restoration of the independence of Southern Cameroons. This is your platform. Allow the others who want in federalism or special status or whatever else they're looking for, let them go and do that somewhere else. But join the international community in recognizing that what they really asked by putting together the Swiss-led process was they asked Cameroon to surrender. There is no better word for surrender than to tell Cameroon that you're coming to meet with Southern Cameroons as equal party at this table of negotiations. That is not happening to the rebels in the Central African Republic, who control 2/3 of the territory. That has not happened to Hamas, which is controlling and has firepower that we only dream of. That is not happening to the Tuareg rebellion in the north of Niger or in the north of Mali. That is not happening to the Casamance rebels in Senegal. So you have a process here where the international community, it is not happened to Somaliland, which had independence for 7 days before joining Somalia. You have only in this case, only in the case of Ambazonia, a process where the international community got together very quickly and within the 2-year period said, we want Cameroon at the table and we want you without posing any condition at all. And we want you to come and talk with these people as equal parties. That is what 1608 said. That is what the referendum setting up on the 11th of February 1961 said. So we are back to the table. We are back to a process. We are back to the eve of negotiations. If only people recognize that that is where we need to go. And again, we say, if we take any process, when I cited the Libyan process a moment ago, it was finalized in Tunisia with the Tunisian government leading it. It was not the Swiss that was leading it anymore. So if people are talking to you about multi-mediation, maybe that's what they're talking about. When this process evolves to the United States leading it, to Germany leading it, to Norway leading it, we will still be at the table. In fact, we will be the first people to be at the table. Because everywhere where the international community is gathered to resolve this problem, there too Ambazonians should be. If you're sitting out like the Palestinians did in 1948 when the Balfour Declaration was provided and a 2-state solution was offered to them and they turned it down. Today we have a 2-state negotiation that is offered to Ambazonians. You cannot turn it down.
Thank you very much, Tumfoin. And I want to take 2 more questions. I want to do 2 more questions on the Swiss process because we have spent 2 hours on it, and I think there are many other things that we should be talking about. But Dr. Osom, and I want to go back to, given the importance of this, given the importance of putting the team together, again, for the audience, after my questions, I'll be able to take questions. So I see your hands up. Just get ready. We'll open it up. But Dr. Osom, I wanted to talk about the team building opportunity. I mean, because one would think that an event like that, which happened in Toronto, would have been a great opportunity for ACT to go and meet and talk to the people. Talk to them about this is what we are doing and this is what you are missing out. And to properly phrase the question, a lot of bad blood has flown between the groups over the last 2-3 years. But you see that people are now welcoming the process and they are coming in through the back door. They are not saying it officially. They are trying to, what are you going to do now to, educate them and try to welcome these people? Are you going to do an outreach as ACT? In a way, without the bad blood. Yes, we understand these things. Comrade Bo used to have a good relationship with Comrade Cho, but I don't think that that is happening now. What can you do? I don't see you, Comrade Dr. Osong. You know, what can you do in order to facilitate this, to make sure that we can get our comrades on the table? Because people have understood this, but they are just not humble enough to say, hey, yeah, we were grandstanding at the time, but now we understand that this is all we have. And if we miss this, then that's it.
I am here, Comrade Lam, and thank you for that question. Before I answer it very quickly, and yes, indeed, there are lots of comments in the chat about interacting with the team. So I want to encourage you as a moderator to do that and not make this too much of a monologue, as some people have commented. To Tom Foyne's very, very clear and elaborate response earlier, I wanted to add one point. For mediation to be effective, it is important that the parties who are brought to the table are of equal power, hence the need for capacity building. And that's where HD comes in. The Swiss government says, who can do this best for me? I'm the one paying. And so they hired HD. HD's role is to capacitate, because obviously the asymmetries of power, the balance runs towards La République. So I wanted to throw that in just as an addition to Tom Foyne's explanation on the role of the Swiss and why we hear so much about HD. Which brings me very nicely to responding to your question about team building, and ACT was invited to CDN, and perhaps that was an opportunity. The way I'll answer this is to say that if you're a builder out there and you've built a house, you pour the concrete, you do the foundation of your house, you raise the walls, the rafters, you put a roof on it. Your engineer might come back and figure out that there are some structural deficiencies in the house. I would submit to you that the logical step to take is not to break the house down and pour concrete to build another. No, rather what you do, you huddle together, get the best of your engineers and savoir-faire, and say, how do we make this house more structurally sound so we can get inside and the roof does not cave on top of our heads or the walls collapse around us. That's the logical thing to do, and not go out there to create this ever burgeoning competing platforms, which I said now resulted in tribal wars with the ghost of division clearly walking around in daylight now. Usually ghosts come out only at night. In Ambazonian, we have perfected the art of bringing out a ghost in broad daylight. So to your question on team building and outreach, I am perhaps one of the first people, because I love to do my things quietly. I borrow heavily from, I believe it was Roosevelt or Lincoln, who said, walk softly and carry a big stick. I believe that quiet diplomacy works, especially in this area of power asymmetries where La République is looking, my dear brothers and sisters, to frustrate every chance at getting a justice and permanent solution. They will rather agitate for negative peace. So I was one of the very first people who set out on this outreach where every group was rich, quietly, in a brotherly and sisterly fashion, and say, hey, do you know of this platform if you don't already? And it is an open door environment where we are seeking to bring everybody, so the best of the best minds, when 2 or 3 are gathered together and the spirit of the struggle is within us, as well as the spirit of the Almighty, God knows and we know we are therefore endowed with the strength and the gifts of clarity, of wisdom and discernment. Some still held out for the reasons that Abdul Karim, my comrade, and Tom Foyne have clearly articulated better than I can, for all the reasons why they should kill the bird and set it free or kill it in search for 2 in the bush. I won't go back to that. So outreach has been done. Now, fast forward to today. Suffice to say that the members within ACT are all willing, and I ask that if any of them are not, to please say so, willing to come together with the teams and the groups that are holding out in a capacity building fashion, facilitated either by HD or any of the friends of the group of Swiss-led process, to work with us to build this trust that we so much need. Because right now we can all agree that there is no expectation of good intention in certain quarters. So my suggestion and answer in a short form is for the team building and outreach, that the capacitating, and facilitative work, we could come together just so we can understand each other. Thank you. I'll take a water break.
Thank you. Sorry about that. So my last question before I go open it up, Comrade Abdul Karim, this is for you. And I just want to say I recognize Chairman Frank, Victor Ndonyi, Benjamin, and Comrade Ngalim Bernard. I already see your hands up. There are some questions on the chat already, but I see your hands up. Comrade Abdul Karim, I think I would be remiss if I didn't ask this question. One of the members, the constituent members of ACT, is the IG that is led by Comrade Sako, and that is currently in shambles. So the House itself has a problem, and I'm wondering whether ACT as a group is doing anything to help resolve that crisis, because the risk of that crisis festering and maybe eating up the team is quite high.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, comrade. And yeah, it is quite true what you're saying. But here is the thing. And before I get to that question, let me say that the role of ACT, and I was answering these questions to a couple of our parents back here yesterday. We are simply fortunate that someone has to do what we are doing. All of Southern Cameroons could not be at the time when this process was born and could not be doing what we're doing. So we are the fortunate ones that God has assigned us to do service to our people. We are not the negotiators. We may not even be around the negotiating rooms. This should go home. This is not what we're trying to do here. Okay, we pray for the IG. I mean, every house has issues. We pray for the IG, and we are hoping that God provides for them a solution that will work in good. In this note, I want to call on our people to refrain from indulging into making conclusions out of the situations. Listen, any blow against ourselves, if I throw a blow, God forbid, against my father here, Pablo, he would feel the pain, but Southern Cameroons would be hurt, because it is La République that would benefit. There is no punch against us that makes any of us stronger, except that it benefits the oppressor. We should not jubilate because one movement is falling down. Any movement that falls down is a big fall for us all. So it is true, and this is why it's a coalition. That is why it's good to be in a coalition. Rest assured, I am not in any of these movements, but I'm a member of ACT. If I'm sick today, even if I die, with my comrades whom I know are in ACT, I will be happy in my grave knowing that the struggle for justice of my people is still in safe hands because of that coalition. That is why, even when IG is trying to solve our internal problems, unfortunately, publicly, because I think all movements have serious internal problems. I even have my own problems here at home regarding struggle with family. We do have these problems. Unfortunately, IG is handling it publicly. But we pray that God brings for them the solution. We cannot be jubilating, but while they are doing so, here is their coalition doing the job that they are supposed to be doing together. And this is why we must all realize that this particular coalition is one coalition that Southern Cameroon has not had for the past 60 years. It was born before the international community at their request. The technical term or terminology they use for it is critical mass. This is the critical mass. And to tell you, this truly for me is the critical mass. And there's a critical mass even within the coalition. It's should I die today, I know that act will safeguard the interests of my people. We have patriots in acts. And sometimes you need just one patriot to save the nation. You see, Jesus Christ did not ask you Christians, including me, if he saved the whole world. He didn't ask anyone. Should he have asked that, listen, I'm going on the cross? Anyway, he did. And you know the response Peter gave him halfway the book of Mark, chapter 8 of Mark. Peter said that, no, my Lord, you can't go and die, because for him the Messiah shouldn't die. And Jesus Christ said, get thee behind me, you Satan. Should he have asked? We would say, no, you cannot die on this cross. But he did it. This is what patriots do. That's for you, the Christians. So basically, we're praying for the IG. I'm asking people to stop being surrogate. It's not easy to understand conflict. And trust me, it is only going to be, I'm correct, you are right. That is a fallacy. Because there's one victor when we fail. And there is one benefactor against ourselves when we hurt ourselves. So I'll end by saying that I'm sure that the IG is going to come out from this and come out strong. And also, finally, we can get to repair this very IG. You coined it well, led by Dr. Sako. We hope to have one IG because for one, I recognize the IG. If we're restoring the country, if we're restoring the statehood of Southern Cameroon, what made that state was the territory, the people, and our government. And La Republique is very scared of this government. But we need to get it fixed. We need to have, there's no country with two governments. None has been with two IGs. So we need to fix that. And I hope that it starts from this. God uses different ways to correct the people. And I'm sure we can learn from our lesson. God has warned us. He's with us. He's granted us his favor, but he has warned us. Don't forget, 30,000 fell when Moses came down from Sinai, found and worshiping the calf. He himself didn't see the promised land, though the favor was on the people of Israel. Let's be warned. Let's be advised. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Comrade Abdul Karim.